What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fully Inflated Football video podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Whitman. We have a full show ahead. We're going to mix things up a little bit again this week. I know I said we'd be back to the weekly recaps this week. I lied to you. I hope you can be okay with that. We went to Twitter to poll what you guys wanted to see. A lot of people have been suggesting that I do top 10 positional rankings, and I had the thought, why not integrate that into the podcast? And I did the poll. All votes were counted, and it was overwhelming. You guys wanted the top 10 positional breakdowns, so we're going to do that every single position group, a top 10 ranking. It's going to be a really fun show. And then we're going to get into the mailbag. And then at the end of the show, I have something very special. It's a heavy topic. I'm going to talk a little bit about this new policy that the NFL has implemented on incentivizing teams to develop minority employees, whether it's coaches or front office personnel, and incentivizing them by draft choice benefits if those guys go and get jobs elsewhere. So it's a very racially driven topic. I know a lot of people just they're not here to hear me talk about race. They're not hearing me talk about sports. That, race has integrated itself into the team building landscape of the NFL now with that rule. So I found it important to talk about that rule and kind of my thoughts on it, what could change. I'm proud about the way that we were able to have a conversation about race and the NFL and sports. And if you don't want to hear it, that's why it's at the end of the show. I know a lot of you guys aren't here for it, but I'm very proud of it. I shared a personal story of my experience trying to get into the NFL, my kind of stance on it. So I do encourage you guys to check it out if you aren't afraid of that kind of conversation or if you don't want to shy away from it. But again, I totally get it if you want to tune out by that, but that will be at the very end of the show after the mailbag. So let's get into it here. I want to remind you that this show is brought to you by my Patreon. That is patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy, where you can not just support this show and my YouTube channel and everything that I do, but become a part of it. Just $1 a month, you'll get access to the Patreon mailbag, where you can guarantee that I answer your question right here on the show. $5 a month, you can get access to my weekly picks over there on Patreon. $10 a month, we're only 2 months, not even that, away from the pre-draft process that starts in January. So $10 a month, you get access to the TFG Draft Insider Package with access to exclusive prospect film breakdowns and exclusive team-specific 7-round mock drafts. So lots of great stuff over there on my Patreon. That's patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. I appreciate you considering your support. Everyone that has shown your support already, thank you, thank you, thank you. I could not do this without you. You literally pay my rent. You put food in my belly. And thank you so much. So the show is brought to you by patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. All right, let's hop into the top 10 positional rankings per position. My criteria here is very simple. It's how I always do these lists. It is in a vacuum. Who am I taking to help me win a game on Sunday? Had to do some dancing around some of these guys that have been injured and sorting through what I would expect them to look like if they were healthy. So get ready for that. But yeah, again, this isn't stats. This isn't what have you done for me over the last 10 years. This is what I'm projecting from you moving forward. Who do I want to win me a game on Sunday at each position group? Fantasy draft style, if you will. So we're going to start with the big one, the quarterback position. 1, 2, 3, Mahomes, Russ, Rodgers. That's where it's been for about a year plus now for me. There's been some moments where Russ, especially about 2-3 weeks ago, was flirting with that number 1 quarterback rating. Mahomes, a bunch of turnover-worthy plays, but that's kind of self-corrected. I don't think we're going to get a lot of disagreement here. People haven't disagreed with this for a long time. You might get some people that throw Russ 1. That's pretty much the only change you see out there. So 1, 2, 3, Mahomes, Russ, Rodgers. Nothing's changed there. I've covered that in depth. So we're just going to get to number 4 here because this is where it gets spicy. And I talked about this on Twitter before I recorded this, how I made this list with the criteria that I established, which is what quarterback do I want in a vacuum. I have no idea who my offensive line, coach, receivers, I have no idea any of that stuff. But what quarterback is going to give me the best chance to win on Sunday? And I made this list with that criteria, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh, crap. The internet is about to tear me a new one. but I'm not going to change my opinion because people disagree. This is my list. And the number 4 quarterback here is Joe Burrow. I know. You're like, you got to be kidding me, TFG. Marcus, what are you doing? You idiot. He's played 8 games, 7 games. I don't care. I see it. I saw it for 15 weeks at LSU, and it's been the exact same thing. Week after week after week after week. It's all there with Joe Burrow. This is unlike any rookie quarterback I've ever seen. All these quarterbacks that we're going to discuss on this list, guys like Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, all these younger quarterbacks with the physical tools, they all have these big hiccup games, or they show things on tape where you're just kind of like, oh no, that's not very good. He's got to get better at that. What does Joe Burrow actually have to get better at? Let me ask you that question before you shred this, because he was other than the arm talent, which is he's never gonna, grow Patrick Mahomes' arm out of his shoulder socket. But other than that, what does he actually have to improve? Go trait by trait by trait. And like I've said, he has Tom Brady's arm, which is more than good enough. Processing, some of the highest I've ever seen at a rookie level. He's had poor offensive lines. He's come in as a rookie in a COVID season where he didn't have a training camp, week 1, and was seeing the field like he did at LSU. Decision-making has been great. There's been a couple rookie mistakes in there. Really only one throw, though, where I was like, oh, you can't make that throw, and that was on a 3rd down. He got 0 blitzed, and he just kind of chucked it up on a jump ball to A.J. Green off his back foot. Not even the worst thing to do, but a bad throw. Other than that, the interceptions have been weird, like Miles Jack ripping the ball out of his tight end, shoveling a ball on a screen pass. His decision-making has been outstanding. The pocket movement, like I've said, Tom Brady waist up, Aaron Rodgers waist down. He has the ideal pocket presence. It is unbelievable. Everything you look for as a pocket passer with his feet. Ability to sense pressure, the eye in the back of his head, to know, like, okay, my left tackle is going to get beat. Even if he's not looking at it, he can feel it. The ability on a 3rd and 8 to say, you know what? My read might tell me I need to take the check down here. I'm looking at you, Derek Carr, Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson. My read might say, oh, shoot, that read wasn't there. I need to take the check down. But Joe Burrow knows, you know what? Having this check down that's going to result in 4th and 2 does nothing for me. If I punt this ball, I might as well just throw it to the free safety. Joe Burrow understands that, and he converts on 3rd downs. And that's going to help them win games. It has helped them win games. Their record doesn't necessarily reflect it, but you can tell when you watch the Bengals, it's a very competitive football team, and the only reason is Joe Burrow. There's no other reason. They were the worst team in football last year. Their defense sucks. Their offensive line is quite possibly the worst in the NFL. Their receivers are fine. T. Higgins has been outstanding, but part of that is the opportunities Joe Burrow has given them to utilize that athleticism. So, I mean, like I said, what does Joe Burrow, where's the room? He's already playing at this high level, but what does he have to improve? I mean, the ball play, that when we asked that question in week 4, it was downfield ball placement and maybe getting rid of the ball quicker. Those might have been the criticisms just 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he's adapted like that. This is Tom Brady stuff that we're seeing here. The attention to details, the unwillingness to fail. This guy is a special athlete all across the board. And if I have a blank slate and I need to pick a quarterback to win me a game on Sunday, I feel better in Joe Burrow than anyone else other than those top 3. So I'm convicted in that opinion. I think it's very close with these next 3, but Joe Burrow is who came out with number 4. Number 5, Kyler Murray. It's been so impressive the last 2 weeks. The physical traits, we know. This dude is one of the most explosive athletes in the league, especially like the 10-yard quick start, short area quickness. It's absurd, but he's got the speed as well. He's getting better as a runner, which is adding to his repertoire, but the vertical passing has started to show up. The processing is starting to show up. The decision-making is good. He's a good decision-maker. I think processing, decision-making, that's where Kyler has such immense potential because he is a legitimately good pocket quarterback. He does those things we talked about with Burrow, sensing pressure, knowing when and how to extend plays, when to hang in, when to bail, when it's appropriate to take a check down, when it's not. He's got all those, he's got the feel of that pocket quarterback, and that's why to me he's so much better than Lamar Jackson. Because Lamar Jackson, you watch him play right now, he looks scared and timid in the pocket. He's like in his own head. One play, he's like, I got to bail right away. The next play, he's like, I can't run. I need to prove that I can be a pocket passer. The next play, he's not sensing a sack. It's just not there for Lamar Jackson as far as that comfort and the ability to excel in the pocket. So Kyler Murray, 5th. And then number 6 is Josh Allen for a very similar reason. He's just been a new man this year. And I left him out of the top 10 week 4 because I was worried that, he had 2 years of NFL tape where he was a sporadic, almost random quarterback. And it just hasn't been the case this year. He's a new man. He's refocused. The game is slowing down for him. His performance against Seattle, he was on God mode. He was making all the right decisions. He didn't miss a throw. And it reminded me, too, we spent a lot of time talking about pocket presence, but it's so important. It reminded me, too, of why I believed in him coming out of Wyoming much more than other people did. And it's because he's got that rare trait. He's got that rare it factor as a pocket passer where, yeah, he can hang in there. He can deliver that first read. But if he doesn't like what he sees, he's so comfortable manipulating the pocket. It's not always just scrambling right away. Sometimes it's stepping around a defeated offensive lineman, drifting back in the pocket. He understands how to buy time to throw. And he's just unbelievable at it. And the fact that he's not making as many bad decisions, there's been some weeks where the old Josh Allen, there's a play here, a play there. But it's not like it used to be where it was consistently hurting them on a week-to-week basis. You still might be a little bit worried that stuff might show up. You might be a little bit worried that he's gonna just oversail a wide-open post route by 10 yards. There's been a couple of those this year. Every quarterback misses throws, but that's on his tape from the last 2 years. But I'm not worried about it at a high enough level to just ignore all the amazing things he's doing and the progression he's made as far as playing in structure and the accuracy. It's incredible the development we're seeing from Josh Allen. I think the development we saw from Lamar Jackson from his rookie year to his sophomore year, it was amazing. It was unlike any development I remember, but the development we're seeing from Josh Allen from last year to this year might even be more so. So Josh Allen's 6th, and I doubted that I would ever get there. I hope that shows that I don't attach myself to takes. I have my takes, and they're fluid. I collect new information. I like Josh Allen coming in. He struggled. I wasn't super high on him coming into the year. He's played great. Now I have him 6th. I told Bills fans at the time that were so mad at me for leaving him off the list, give him another month. And he's more or less sustained. There was a couple quiet weeks in there. There was one really bad weather game where the Bills were just running all over the Patriots. They didn't need to ask anything of Josh Allen. So I'm ready. I'm ready with Josh Allen. I've seen enough. I'll acknowledge that there might be some times where those flaws show up. And you hope that it doesn't go like Carson Wentz status where it just takes over again. But right now I've got full confidence in Josh Allen and give him to me as my number 6 quarterback. And then Deshaun Watson, very similar reason. The physical traits are there. And then kind of in the same breath of Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, the decision-making and the processing is good, not great, but it's good enough to outweigh how smart these other non-gifted quarterbacks are, if that makes sense. So give me the decent decision-making, the decent ability to read defenses, the decent ability to avoid turnover-worthy throws. Give me That combined with elite athletic playmaking ability, the ability to convert on third and longs, the ability to do lots of creative things from a play calling perspective to open up your scheme, the ability to open up the entire field in the passing game because these guys are all great vertical passers. Give me all of those exciting things paired with solid mental sides of the game. Give me that over my next three quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, and Tom Brady, to round out the top 10. And then Lamar Jackson would be 11th. And I will talk about Lamar just because that's something. But Drew Brees at 8 has really turned this thing back around. It was looking early on like that arm talent was going to be so brutal that he just wasn't going to be able to be a good quarterback. But he is locked in. And what's so amazing to me about Drew Brees, we've always compared Brees and Tom Brady. They are, at this stage in their career, they're so polar opposites as far as their play style. Drew Brees, he knows that his arm is shot. He knows it, but he's not afraid of that. He'll take those chances when he needs to. He can't push it much further than about 25 yards, but he'll hit them outside the numbers, up the sideline. He'll hit that post. He'll hit that crosser to the sideline at about 20, 25 yards. He can still do that, but he's got to put everything into it to get it there. But what's so amazing to me about Drew Brees is he has to ride such a thin line as far as timing and being perfect with his reads and ball placement, and he's doing it. It's unbelievable. Can you imagine if he had the physical traits of any of these other guys, how unbelievable he'd be? But his play style is so incredible to me. The Saints have not been an exciting offense, but they've been a damn good offense, and that's without Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. So Drew Brees has really impressed me. He's crept back up into the top 10 list. And then Matt Ryan. I'm taking Matt Ryan over Tom Brady. I know Tom Brady's graded out well. He leads the league in big-time throws. He just doesn't pass the eye test to me. And a big part of that is, his receivers have been injured. His receivers have not been as good as we expected. But also the scheme fit here. He's fine. He's fine as this kind of pocket passing deep ball thrower, almost like a Carson Palmer here for Bruce Arians. But even Carson Palmer had a stronger arm, was a little more mobile. Tom Brady he's kind of a sitting duck back there. And he doesn't throw ducks, but he doesn't throw missiles. And when you're in an offense with Bruce Arians where he's saying, we're going to lead the league in downfield throws, and this, kind of short, quick-hitting passing game, the Drew Brees stuff, some of the Matt Ryan stuff, we'll come back to Matt Ryan, who I ranked 8th above Tom Brady at 9. It's not a focal point of the offense, but Tom Brady also hasn't been particularly good in that part of the field either. So he's still a top 10 quarterback. When I looked at it, I was like, I don't really want, I look at these other guys, I don't really want a piece of Tom Brady right now compared to these other 8 guys. Still a damn good quarterback, but I'm taking the sharp decisiveness of Drew Brees, and I'm taking Matt Ryan, who's up there with Brees and Brady. Matt Ryan's been a better processor, decision maker, playing in rhythm. He's been in the same offense. He's throwing to the same targets. He's got that chemistry, but Matt Ryan's been better at the mental side of the game than Tom Brady. And he's also been, he's more physically gifted. He does more with his legs. I think he has a stronger arm at this stage in his career. It's very close, but I'm going to take Matt Ryan over Tom Brady. I think if you put Matt Ryan in Tampa Bay, you'd see a similar result. You put Tom Brady in Atlanta, I don't know if he would lead the league in passing yards and have this really great offense. So that's close between Matt Ryan and Tom Brady. Super similar players, but my eyes tell me I'd rather Matt Ryan. And then, like I said, Lamar Jackson. Sorry, Ryan was 9, Brady was 10. Lamar Jackson is 11. I won't get into him because he doesn't. I won't get into him too much because he didn't make the top 10. But just turn on literally any Ravens game. Take your pick. He's just not a very good passer. He's somewhere in the 16-ish range as far as just everything about being a passing quarterback. His running ability, number 1. But even compared to some of these other guys like Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, he's not as decisive as a scrambler. You give him designed runs, he's incredible. But he's timid in the pocket. He doesn't know when and how to use his feet all the time. And then the accuracy is not there. He takes too many checkdowns on third down. He really struggles throwing outside the numbers. Just can't really get these receivers going at all. He doesn't have the best receiving core, but yeah, man, Lamar to me is just not a top 10 quarterback right now. If you don't have this amazing Baltimore Ravens offense around him where your blocking is the best in the league, you got elite middle of the field options with guys like Mark Andrews. I said Hayden Hurst, that trade was going to hurt them. Hurst made a lot of big plays for that Ravens team last year. I think they could use him based on how that offense runs. Mark Ingram hasn't been the same. You lose your superstar right guard and now your left tackle. Things start to fall apart. You don't have all that help around him to have this elite run game, and that scheme falls apart a little bit. And we're seeing that with Lamar Jackson. Now, I still think he's a really good quarterback. I'm taking him over a lot of other guys. I'm still taking him over a guy like Justin Herbert, a lot of other guys, but he's just not a top 10 quarterback to me. So then we've got the running backs, and much less to talk about once we get past the quarterback position. It gets a little more simple, but this one was tough at the top three for me. I do have Dalvin Cook number 1, Christian McCaffrey 2, and Alvin Kamara 3. And this is tough because if I'm a really pass-heavy offense, which is most teams in the league, I'd rather have McCaffrey and Kamara. But if you want to talk about like the hardest thing to find, which is that elite do-it-all running back, not that finding a receiving back is easy, but I think what Dalvin does is the most unique out of all these guys, and that is 3-down back, explosive, fights for tough yards, and contributes in the receiving game. Great vision. He's got the whole package. Now, he's not as good as a receiver as McCaffrey and Kamara, but I'm going to outweigh the running ability, the between the tackles ability of Dalvin Cook, considering he's still really good as a receiver. You know, he's not the route runner. He doesn't have the concentration at the catch point as McCaffrey and Kamara. But I'm going to put Dalvin Cook number 1. I think he's the best runner of the football. And then the next two are potentially the best all-around backs. It's tough to separate because I have McCaffrey 2 and Kamara 3. They're just so different because they contribute so much in the receiving game. So McCaffrey, I'm going to put 2 because I don't want to forget what he did last year. He's been injured. He's been outstanding when he's been out there. He's playing on a worse team. Alvin Kamara this year has been getting more hype and attention. Very much interchangeable. Like, I think both these guys are incredible. They're a little bit different stylistically. McCaffrey, a little bit more of a fluid route runner, better, hands at the catch point, and just more explosive in general as far as give him an inch of daylight and he's gone. Whereas Kamara is more like fighting for really tough yards, breaking tackles. But both of these guys are incredible running backs. And then Saquon's number 4. Saquon's the most physically talented guy on this list. The one thing with Saquon is he's not quite the receiving threat that Kamara and McCaffrey are, just as far as the polish when it comes to route running and making tough catches, making guys miss right after the catch. He's obviously very good at that. Just not at that level. And he, when you compare him to Dalvin Cook, just does not have the vision that Dalvin Cook has. Vision's a problem with Saquon Barkley. He does a lot of what Adrian Peterson did early in his career, and really throughout his career, which is, try to turn every run into an 80-yard touchdown. Now, Saquon hasn't gotten the best blocking. I think there's a chance if we got to see him with some of these other teams like Minnesota that would have had a great scheme with that outside zone run game, maybe we'd be considering Saquon the best running back in the NFL. And at times I have, but what Dalvin is doing right now is next level stuff. Then I've got Josh Jacobs, number 5. He's this true 3-down back. He has the explosiveness. He's great in the receiving game. He pass protects, makes guys miss. I just am a huge fan of Josh Jacobs. He's a huge integral part of what the Raiders do. He's outstanding. Number 6, Derrick Henry. He just doesn't bring the things that these other guys bring in the receiving game. That's why Nick Chubb is going to follow up at number 7. But obviously, if you just want to talk about pure running ability, Henry would be 2 for me behind Dalvin, and Chubb would be 3 behind Derrick Henry. But I do think you got to factor in your consistency in the receiving game, the ability to take a check down and make a guy miss and fight for a first down, the ability to take a screen and have that ability to flip your hips and get upfield. Henry and Chubb don't necessarily have that part of their game down. A little more straight line speed from those guys. Then Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon to me is a slight downgrade from Josh Jacobs. Extremely similar players, almost identical builds, both very athletic dudes, great juking ability to make guys miss. They'll run through you, consistent in the receiving game. Mixon is just outstanding. And then number 9, I have not Alvin Jones, that's his brother, Aaron Jones. He, to me, is an interesting case study because he was the lowest draft pick of anyone on this list. Yep, I just wanted to double check that. Lowest draft pick, all these guys were 3rd round or higher. So Jones falls a little bit because he doesn't necessarily have the physical traits. He's fast. Don't get me wrong, he's fast, but even at 205 pounds or whatever he is, 210 pounds maybe, he's maybe about as fast as Jacobs and Henry, but those guys just have such more of an element of power. But Jones does the absolute most with what he has. I'm not trying to make it sound like he's not explosive because he accelerates very well and he's got pretty good top speed, but doesn't have too much power. He can kind of angle his way through traffic and fight for 2 or 3 tough yards, but he's not really going to truck you. He's decent with a stiff arm. He's decent at shrugging off tackles, but he's got really good vision. He's well above average explosiveness, and he is showing that he is an excellent receiver. Now, by necessity, Aaron Jones has had to step out and actually play like real receiver and show like legit route running and ability to win vertically, like lining up outside and winning on a go ball. So that's unique for Aaron Jones. I just prefer the physical talents of some of these other guys, but Aaron Jones is phenomenal. And then Kareem Hunt, 10th. Hunt falls in line with Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, and then Kareem Hunt. These guys are so similar. They're what you call a contact balance back, consistently make the first guy miss, great vision, really smooth in the receiving game. James Robinson is very similar to these guys too. He's shown similar traits. Kind of that low to the earth style, really tough to bring down. Not necessarily in a traditional sense a power back, right? They're not going to hit a bunch of traffic and drive that pile 4 or 5 yards. But they're just really tough to bring down because they've got such great balance and strength. So there's my running backs. I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and hop back in and talk about the receivers. All right, wide receivers. Another controversial number 1. And again, my criteria here. Who do I want to give me the best chance to win on Sunday? And my number 1 guy is Tyreek Hill. Doesn't have the best stats. Doesn't even necessarily have the best skills. He's got good skills. But the physical traits, you can't cover this guy. And even when you do, you're committing so many resources to cover him that it opens up everything else. Someone asked me on Twitter who's the most underrated player in the NFL, and my first thought was Tyreek Hill because he never gets thrown in this number 1 receiver room. But if you offered Tyreek Hill to the Falcons for Julio Jones, or inversely, if the Falcons offered Julio Jones for Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs would tell him to buzz off. Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins for Tyreek Hill, buzz off. Packers, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen. I'm actually going on my list right here. I just spoiled it. But Tyreek Hill is the most valuable non-quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. Because there's guys with speed, and then there's Tyreek Hill. And then there's receivers with elite speed, but they don't have Tyreek Hill's route running, release, and catch and traffic ability. So not only is his speed next level, nobody can run with this guy. But when you compare him to other deep threats, he's better than them. He has, I would say, the ball tracking, the release, the route running of Deshaun Jackson in his prime, which is one of the best deep threats of the decade. You pair that with Tyreek Hill and his speed, And then you put in the catch and traffic ability, the ability for them to, if you drop back 10 yards, all they got to do is flip him the ball, and he's going to turn it into a 10-yard gain. So you can't be too far off of him because you give him any space, and he's going to turn it into 10 yards. He is the best non-quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. So based on the criteria for my list, he's wide receiver 1. Like his Madden rating or whatever wouldn't be number 1 because, he's not an elite route runner. He doesn't have elite hands. He makes some mistakes. He's got some drops. But what he does best is just different. So he's my number 1. Julio's number 2. For similar reasons, the physical traits are just so terrifying. And he's playing at a super high level right now, by the way. Men with his size should not be able to move the way he does. Look no further than last week on the corner route where he just stole Michael Ojemudia, a young rookie's ankles. Just stole him. It was wide open in the corner of the end zone. He's the only receiver, in my opinion, in the last decade that should have won an MVP. 2016. And he's not quite what he was in 2016, but when he's healthy, which that's a knock on him, I'll give you that. If I'm talking about the course of a season, would I rather have Julio or my number 3, DeAndre Hopkins? I might take Hopkins because I'm more reliable. I feel more, safe that Hopkins is going to stay healthy. But I think Julio is just, when he's out there, is the all-around package for Julio Jones is the best receiver in football. Tyreek Hill is the most valuable receiver in football. Then we got DeAndre Hopkins. Value being helps you win the most. So that would lead you to say he's the best, in my opinion. Then you got DeAndre Hopkins, another full package receiver. He's not quite as fast as Julio Jones, but he's fast. He's a good route runner. He wins in traffic. To me, he's Julio Jones without the elite speed at the receiver position. But he's very fast for a guy that size. Then number 4, I have Davante Adams. The ability to separate is the most important trait at the receiver position. And he, to me, is he the best route runner in football? If he's not the best, he's top 3. His release is the best. I don't think you can make a case for anyone else to have the foot speed, ability to win with his hands at the release, and then the combination of release packages that Davante Adams does. You know how Kyle Shanahan, we talk about him as an offensive play caller, he sets everything up to look the same, and then he hits you in so many different ways. Davante Adams does that as at the release point. You can't press this guy. You don't know if he's running a slant. You don't know if he's going outside. And you don't know what kind of move he's going to go to. You don't know if he's going to use his hands. You don't know if he's going to just hard release and just keep running. He keeps you honest all game at the line of scrimmage. So that's Davante Adams' the most redeeming quality. And then over the last few weeks, he's really stepped it up as far as winning contested balls. I wanted to see some more of that. And the hands have been really solid for him too. He's not dropping the ball. Then I got Keenan Allen. Extremely similar player to Davante Adams. Extremely similar. I would say not quite as quick, but better at the catch point. That's the trade-off. I think Davante is a slightly better separator. Keenan Allen a little bit better in contested catch. I give the nod to the separator. Michael Thomas, almost, I don't want to say all the way around. I think Michael Thomas truthers get really mad when you say he can't separate because that's just not true. And it's the ability to separate. It's not just separating as far as getting open. You can separate at the catch point as well by being tough, shrugging off, hand fighting. People are grabbing and defensive pass interfering at almost every play. It's not always called, but Michael Thomas it doesn't bother him. And that's an ability to separate at the catch point, is to have that length to attack the football. So he does separate in that way, but yeah, the route running's not really there. The top speed's not really there. The vertical ability, not all that there. I'd throw a jump ball to him. 40 yards downfield if I had time to throw it, but, he's not getting wide open like some of these other guys are downfield. So he's great, perfect fit in that offense. He's the most, Davante Adams making a case for this, but Michael Thomas has been the most productive receiver in the NFL, but so many people look too much at stats and not traits. Then I got Stephon Diggs, a lead separator, attacks the ball at the catch point, outstanding with the ball in his hands. he just is a little bit too inconsistent to be there with guys like Devontae Adams and Keenan Allen, who are somewhat similar players. But he's outstanding. His highs are as high as anyone on this list. And then Chris Godwin. I thought about this for a long time because Chris Godwin just hasn't been as good as I thought he would be this year. He's been so injured. He's played 3 games? And he was really good in one of them. And then the last game he played, he had, I think it was his pinky and his fourth finger were tied up. Try playing receiver like that. And they just got blown out in that game. I have a lot of faith in Chris Godwin. It hasn't shown this year because of injuries and just kind of a lot of the stuff that's going on in Tampa Bay has been really inconsistent. But I'm gonna have faith in Chris Godwin. The physical talent, he is outstanding. He is outstanding, getting open, winning contested catches. He blocks really well. He's really good with the ball in his hands. So I'm going to keep him on this list. And then I've got DK Metcalf, number 9. Again, not a well-rounded player. He's going to go deep or run a crosser. That's pretty much it. He had that one really nice double move on Gilmore, but that's going deep. He's not all that good on slants, and he's frankly not even that good catching the ball in traffic, or he's got drops. He's got flaws as a receiver, but what he does best is right behind Tyreek Hill for the most valuable asset any receiver has here, and that is that this dude is 235 pounds. He runs a legitimate 4.3. I mean, he's a slow starter. His top speed might be hidden by the first 10 yards of that 40 time. His top speed is stupid. And he's in a perfect scheme fit with Russell Wilson. But, yeah, DK Metcalf makes the list for me. I want him on my team. And then A.J. Brown, number 10. How solid is A.J. Brown? That is how I describe him. He's different. He's different as a receiver than these other guys. He's not an elite deep threat. He's very good as deep threat. He's got, about 4, I think he ran a 4.5. I think he's a little faster than that. He's got 4.45 speed, so he can, he can burn you. He's a little thicker though, a little stiffer. He's not going to really shake you to get open. What he does is he just runs super hard. And the Titans are so good at utilizing him in that. They use him on crossing routes, they use him on go balls, slants, hard in a straight line. And once he gets that ball in his area, he has such a, pardon my French, my ball bitch mentality. I think it's necessary to say that with A.J. Brown because this dude is B.A. He attacks the ball. He says, get off me. This is my football, and I'm not just going to catch this thing. I am going to embarrass you and your family because I now have this football. I'm going to stiff arm you. I'm going to run you over. If you try to come in with your helmet and knock this thing out, if you try to punch this thing out and get me to fumble, you can get lost, meet the dirt. He is a unique player, and I love him for it. And I want him on my football team. So he's number 10. All right. Number 10. Wow, that was a misspeak. Tight ends. T-E, 10, tight end. That's probably where I screwed that up. Anyway, Kittle and Kelsey, 1 and 2. Kelsey's closing the gap. I still think, Kittle, he's faster. He's a little better with the ball in his hands, a little better of a blocker. Kelsey, a little better hands, a little better route running. Dude, I said coming into the year, Kittle is tight end 1. I think when they're both healthy, I will take Kittle, but I'm not going to lie. If I was drafting for a season, I'd probably take Kelsey because I don't know how much I trust Kittle's ability to stay healthy. And I think part of that is because he plays so physical. I mean, put yourself in George Kittle's shoes, the way he plays. He takes a lot of shots. He deals a lot of shots, but he's going to take them too. Kelsey a little more calculated, and I think it helps him stay healthy. And then I got Mark Andrews 3. Continues to develop as a blocker. He's outstanding, getting open. Just a do-it-all tight end. Love me Mark Andrews. The tight end list is much easier because there's such a drop-off after that top two. And then you got Darren Waller. You could make a case for Darren Waller over Mark Andrews. You really could. He's such a great separator. And I'm almost talking myself into that because I think he does a little bit more than Mark Andrews does as far as the ability to get open at an elite level. But Andrews, he's just so crafty. He's so reliable. A little bit more dependable as a blocker, although it's close. So I could be persuaded to have Waller over Andrews. I'm going to stick with Andrews, but if you wanted to put Waller 3 and Andrews 4, I could understand that. Those guys are very tight. I would say that, well, that's kind of an irrelevant point. We're trying to look at this in a vacuum. I was going to say that you take Andrews off the Ravens, it's a much bigger loss than taking Waller off the Raiders, but that's not consistent with our criteria here. Number 5, Jonnu Smith. Under the radar player. He is one of the hardest players to tackle in the NFL of any position. That's crazy considering he's on a team that has A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry, but this dude is a speed train with the ball in his hands. He is so fast, one-dimensional tight end, but what you like a lot about Jonnu Smith is he has really worked at his blocking, and because of that, he's earned himself a starting role. Delaney Walker is an afterthought. And I want to say he's in a contract year. I wouldn't be surprised if Jonnu Smith gets a very healthy contract from the Tennessee Titans. Then I've got Hunter Henry. He's been a little disappointing this year. I think the injuries have stacked up. He just doesn't have that same explosiveness as he had early in his career. Still just a really solid tight end. Reliable, blocks, decent route runner, can win contested catches. Just doesn't bring the same physical advantage as some of these other tight ends. Same with Zach Ertz right now. He could climb back up, but Zach Ertz was really disappointing to start the year. Drops, continued to not block. He's just shown his age a little bit. That ability to separate so quickly was always an asset for him, and he just wasn't doing it this year, and he's getting up there in age, so I'm a little worried about Zach Ertz. You know, he could get back up there pretty quickly if he could get healthy, but I feel pretty good about having him down here. And then it gets tough. It gets really tough after the top 7. I went with Tyler Higbee. He's a great blocker for the Rams. Great blocker. He's such an asset for that run game. He's a decent athlete, reliable hands. Nothing crazy, but I went with him. And then TJ Hawkinson, 9. He's certainly climbing. He's having a good season. I think Higbee just a little more reliable, but Hawkinson very quickly climbing there. I think if I redid this list in 4 weeks, I'd probably be comfortable with TJ Hawkinson. I just need to see a little bit more. And then number 10 was really hard for me. I went with Jared Cook because he's a good mismatch problem. Maybe it's just recency bias because he had a really bad week against Tampa Bay. But he's a good piece for the Saints offense. He gets open over the middle of the field. He's a tough guy to bring down. You could have a worse blocker at tight end. He's not a great blocker, but there's the tight end list. All right, offensive lineman. This is going to be fun. I did do position by position here, so tackle, guard, center. Ronnie Stanley is still my number 1 offensive tackle. He's outstanding. Got the physical traits. He's got the body of work now. He's got the track record that tells me he's only going to get better. He did tear his ACL, though, which sucks. Like the week he got paid, which does not suck that he got that contract. Yeah, best all-around tackle to me, Ronnie Stanley. And then I got David Bakhtiari, who you can make a case is a better pass protector than Ronnie Stanley. But I'll take a marginal drop-off in pass protection to get the added mauling force of a Ronnie Stanley. And then Laramie Tunsil, really on the up and up. With Stanley and Bakhtiari not playing at the moment, Laramie Tunsil is the best tackle in football right now. And I had him as a star of the week 2 weeks ago on my studs and duds because good for Laramie Tunsil. Character concerns coming out, has the gas mask thing. Most of his career in Miami showed some development, but it was very slow. It was kind of like, is this guy ever going to be an elite tackle? Because he's got the traits to do it. And now in Houston, he's an elite tackle. And honestly, with the way he's grown, I didn't think it was going to happen. The reason I was critical of the trade for Laramie Tunsil was I said, this guy isn't David Bakhtiari. He's not Andrew Whitworth. He's not Teron Armstead. He's a high-quality starter, but I said you only make that trade if Laramie Tunsil is an elite offensive tackle. Game to game, snap to snap, high-level reliability, and you're getting that from Laramie Tunsil. And honestly, I would give up. If I needed a left tackle and I had Deshaun Watson as my quarterback, I would give up 2 firsts and a second-round pick to get this version of Laramie Tunsil. And after this year, that's going to be behind them. I'm kind of second guessing that, but if you think you're going to be picking, late in the draft when you make that trade, I do think it's worth it. And then you got Andrew Whitworth 4th. This guy is just an ageless wonder. They say he's 38. I don't believe it. I think he's probably in his 60s. But he's still one of the top tackles in football. I thought he showed some aggression last year, but he just went back to the lab and was like, nope, I'm good. We're good to go. He signed a 3-year contract extension. At 67 years old. No, 38, I think he is. Signed a 3-year contract extension. This guy's not going anywhere. He ain't going anywhere. Ryan Ramczyk, Teron Armstead, 5 and 6 in that order. These guys are unbelievable for the Saints. Best tackle duo in football right there, obviously. Both just all around. Good athletes, tough in the run game, good technique, good footwork. Not a whole lot of weaknesses there for those two guys. Number 7, Trent Williams. What a move for the Niners to go and get him for a 4th-round pick. He's still an elite athlete. He's clearly bounced back from all. He had injuries stacking up. It felt like he just couldn't get past. I think he had a foot injury that he kept nagging him. He had a cancer deal going on. If the Niners can't retain him, this guy's going to get so much money in the open market. That's fascinating to me. If the Niners are able to retain him. Because they're struggling for cap space. There's a world where Trent Williams and David Bakhtiari are free agents this summer. Then Mitchell Schwartz, 8th. He's shown his age a little bit. He's one of these guys that is so technically sound, but when he loses what physical traits he does have, it makes you wonder what's the drop-off going to be. And we're seeing that the foot speed just isn't quite there. His punches aren't doing quite as much. He's getting a little bit older. He has not been bad. But he's probably slid down this a little bit. He probably would have been a top 5 tackle coming into the league. Just been passed up a little bit. Lane Johnson at number 9 for the Eagles. He's been banged up so much. But let Trent Williams serve as an example for these guys. They're allowed to have some injured seasons. He's been incredibly reliable for the Eagles. He has his gaffes as far as his finesse pass blocking, but the dude's such a beast. He's so athletic, great run blocker. And then number 10, this one was tough. I went with Lyle Collins. He grades out incredibly well. He's developed at a really high rate. He's a great athlete. He's supposed to be a first-round pick coming out of LSU. The Cowboys kind of lucked into getting him because he had a pre-draft scuffle. Something went on. I don't remember what happened, but he ended up becoming a free agent, an undrafted free agent. It never should have happened. This guy's a total rock. And you're seeing what's happening at right tackle without him. It is not pretty. So the Cowboys are really missing Lyle Collins. And I think we're realizing how good he actually is by him not playing. All right, offensive guards, Quentin Nelson 1, Zach Martin 2. Put them in any order. How about Notre Dame, the top 2 guards in football, and the top tackle with Ronnie Stanley, right? Yeah, that's incredible. Then I put Brandon Brooks 3. He was actually probably the best guard in football last year. He had a brutal, I think it was an Achilles injury in the summer. I think he can still play. I think he's 31 years old. I think he'll be back and solid for the Eagles next year. Ollie Marpet at 4, another guy. When he came out for the Bucs against the Saints, it was brutal. He's a stud, rock star at left guard. Joel Bitonio he is a brick wall of a pass protector. Not the most elite athlete, not the most amazing run blocker. He's very good in that department. Shaq Mason, a little bit of the opposite. This dude he's like a fullback playing right guard. I mean, when they pull him, look out. But he's developed so well as a pass protector over the years. He's a really impressive player for the New England Patriots. Richie Incognito at 7. What a signing that was for the Raiders. It's funny because he basically got kicked out of the league because he was bullying that one dude. And I don't know what else was going on in the field, but the reason it took so long for him to come back was he was never, at least the 4 years before he got kind of kicked out of the league, he wasn't an elite guard. He was a starting caliber guard, but it was kind of like, this isn't really worth the headache. He's not really liked around the league. And the Raiders bring him in, and he comes in with a vengeance. And he's like one of the best guards in football. Now he's injured. He's now like 38 years old. So I don't know how sustainable this is going to be. But if he was healthy today, he's definitely on this list. Brandon Scherf, 8. He's cooled off a little bit. I think when you're just surrounded by hot garbage for that long, you just forget how to be an elite football player, but he's still really good. Kevin Zeitler for the Giants. Again, he has not been as good for the Giants as he was for Cleveland, but this guy's been so steady throughout his career. I like Kevin Zeitler a lot. And then I have Joe Thuney at 10. He's still having a good year there for New England. He's on the franchise tag. He's another guy that's going to get a massive payday. Just a really steady do-it-all guard. And then at center, Rodney Hudson is 1. That one's easy. And then I have Jason Kelce, number 2 for the Eagles. Not what he used to be. There's a pretty big gap now between Hudson and Kelce. Then I've got Brandon Linder for the Jaguars at 3. Underrated star at center. Corey Linsley, 4 for the Green Bay Packers. Excellent pass protector and underrated run blocker. Frank Ragnow, he's the guy that in 2-3 years could be number 1 on this list. He was a first-round pick for Detroit. Unbelievably good run blocker. Flies off the ball, comes in low, just knocks you off the ball. Still growing as a pass protector, but Frank Ragnow definitely on the rise. J.C. Treader, 6. One of these just kind of sound, smart, brick wall pass protectors. Eric McCoy, 7. McCoy and Ragnow, 3 years from now, I bet Ragnow and McCoy are 1 and 2. McCoy is so impressive. Great find for the Saints. They traded up to get him, knowing that what was the center's name that retired? Max Unger was there for a while after they got him from Seattle. They knew they were going to lose Unger, so they traded up, got Eric McCoy. What an offensive line that is for the Saints. Another young guy here, a couple of young guys. Ryan Kelly, 8 for the Colts. Hasn't quite captured elite potential, but he's just sound, steady, former Alabama center. Kind of a high floor type of center. Garrett Bradbury, another young guy on the rise. He's having an excellent season for the Minnesota Vikings. Perfect scheme fit there. If you're in an outside zone scheme fit, Garrett Bradbury, other than Jason Kelce maybe, is the guy you want. I mean, his ability to move block and get off the ball and get to spots is unreal. He's been better as a pass protector. He's still a little bit undersized. So when he goes against guys like Akeem Hicks, which we'll see Monday night, we'll see that great matchup, Kenny Clark, he can struggle just because he's not the strongest guy in the world, but he's a really good center. And then Ben Jones, solid veteran, a little bit of a down year. He's up there in age, but Tennessee Titans, Ben Jones, really good center, great run blocker. And there's your offense. All right, I'm going to take another quick break, and then we'll come back and do the defensive side of the ball. All right, on to the defense. Interior defensive lineman, Aaron Donald, 1. Chris Jones, 2. I don't think we'll get much agreement there. Fletcher Cox at 3. Little bit of age regression there, not quite getting after the pass of the last couple years at that elite level. 2 years ago, he was doing it at the same level Aaron Donald was, getting 100 pressures. Just not quite there. Then I got Cam Hayward, 4. surrounded by so much talent there with Pittsburgh, but this dude, he's so productive as a pass rusher. He's so dependable as a run defender. Lengthy guy, plays a lot of 4-tech, 3-eye. Just impressive overall 3-4 defensive end. Kenny Clark, outstanding nose tackle for the Green Bay Packers. He's one of these nose tackles that does enough as a pass rusher to have true value. They gave him a big contract. A little bit of a down year here. He's been a little banged up. But Kenny Clark, I don't think there's a huge gap between Chris Jones all the way down here, really through our number 7 guy. So Grady Jarrett's 6th. I love Grady Jarrett. He just flies off the ball. He's low to the earth, productive pass rusher. He makes splash plays in the run game. He can get thrown around a little bit. He's only 6 foot, like 310 pounds. He's very strong though. I don't want to call him a bad run defender. I would just say he's a spotty run defender in the same way that like Aaron Donald is. Like he's kind of I'm just going to wreck the game plan here. I'm just going to fly in, blow the blocking up. Might not always make the play. Sometimes it'll connect and it'll look beautiful. But he's not a guy that's going to always control his gap and, play that disciplined run defender role. Then you got Stephon Tuitt. Just so steady. Underrated player because he missed a lot of last season. And he's come in and been fantastic, productive pass rusher, good run defender. Then I have DeForest Buckner. He's an inconsistent player, and I think it's just a result because of his body type. I think there's a good chance that certain offensive linemen just are matched up better to fit him. He's a very lengthy defensive tackle. He's the most lengthy defensive tackle in the league. He's like 6'7". He's only like 300 pounds. So if you get a guy that gets his hands inside and plays with strength, like that can match that quickness, you're playing very high. So I like Buckner, but there's inconsistencies there. He does use that length really well to make an impact in the run game, though. So I like Buckner. I think he's a touch on the overrated side right now, but a very good player. There's some people that are saying he's an elite player for the Colts, and I wouldn't go that far. He's a really good defensive tackle. Jeffrey Simmons, 9. Great pick for the Titans. Absolutely great pick. He is up and coming. The last month for him, he's really starting to click. He's been a beast deflecting passes. 3 of the last 4 weeks. He's had like game-changing deflections late in games. But it's not just that. He's been outstanding as a run defender. He's got a ton of upside as a pass rusher, and he's contributing right now. So I love Jeffrey Simmons. He's up and coming. And then Vita Vea, 10. Let's not forget how good Vita Vea was the first month of the season before he went down for the year. We know he's one of the best run defenders in the league. That was always going to be the case when he got drafted, but what he's surprised is he's been so much better as a pass rusher than myself and so many people expected. Just such a pile driver. He's just so hard to get your hands on him. And if he was still going at the rate he was playing, he would probably be higher on this list. I just wanted to see a little bit more from him. Then on the edge, this was tough to kind of sort through, honestly. I don't think this list is as clear as it once was. I actually put Myles Garrett 1. I still have all the respect in the world for Khalil Mack, but Myles Garrett he's the guy with the traits right now. He's the guy with the physical dominance at the highest level. It's close. It was really close. I went with Garrett over Mack. I don't feel great about it. If I was really picking between these two guys, it's really tough. It's really, really tough. Might come down to what kind of scheme I want to run. If I want to run a 3-4, I guess I'll take Khalil Mack. He's got the experience and more of that flexibility as an off-ball or off-the-ball edge player, I guess, if you will. Myles Garrett, more of that hand-in-the-dirt explosiveness. But very similar players. That power is just too much. Both these guys have enough finesse, enough counter moves to be elite. But I struggled between those two. But 1 and 2, Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. And then I have TJ Watt, 3. So crafty. He's more of the bendy, finessey. He's got some power. He is just so consistently high motor. Whether you're dropping him into coverage, having him bend around the edge, push the pocket, play run defense. He does everything. If you know you're a 3-4 team, you probably take TJ Watt because he's super productive as a pass rusher, but he brings so much flexibility to drop into coverage and stuff too. And then Nick Bosa 4, Joey Bosa 5. I think Nick Bosa, it's almost like the Joe Burrow thing. Like he is such a refined player. It's insane for a rookie. You know, it was going to be year 2. He has all of the keys to the test. He's Batman. He's got 2,000 tools on his belt to beat you. He can beat you with power. He can bend you around the edge. He can spin around you. He can, do a club and rip. He has so many tools. Joey Bosa, his brother, is almost as good, I guess. Similar player, a little more power over finesse, but he's got both. Kind of hard to separate the two Bosas. They're both so good. They're both so good. Danielle Hunter 6th. He is the most physically explosive player on this list. Outside of maybe our 10th guy on this list. But not a ton to say about Danielle Hunter. I don't think he's got the counter moves quite at the level of the top 5, but I think he's absolutely worthy of this spot. Then I got Cameron Jordan. A little bit of age regression. He's not the most explosive guy in the world, but plays his ass off. Kind of like Nick Bosa. Like he's got that full tool belt. He's got the finesse, the run defense, the power. Then I've got not Dexter Lawrence. Lawrence for the Cowboys. Who cares what his first name is? I'm drawing a blank. But really powerful rusher. When he goes against protectors, though, protectors is a weird thing to say. When he goes against tackles that have really solid anchors, he can struggle. Really, if he can't set up that power, he doesn't have a ton of counters, but that power is a true threat from Lawrence. And then Brandon Graham, 9. Him and Lawrence are similar guys. Like they are pocket pushers. They are power rushers at their core. Brandon Graham is having an outstanding season. He's a big reason the Eagles are winning the NFC East. They got a lot of stars, but a lot of those stars aren't playing like stars. But Brandon Graham is. And then number 10, Brian Burns. Brian Burns. I'm so impressed with the development he's shown in year 2. Now, he doesn't have the power, and I don't think he ever will. And that might hold him back from being a top 5 player on this list ever. Because if you don't have that threat of power, ultimately offensive tackles know what to prepare for. They know they got to set quickly, they got to get back, they got to get their punches in there. But they don't necessarily have to worry about the bull rush. And when you don't have to worry about the bull rush, it is going to be hard to consistently dominate. But his explosiveness is such a threat. Like when I say you know what you got to do when you're going against speed rushers, you got to set quickly and get your hands ready. That takes another level with Brian Burns. His burst and first step is something else. And then he has this rare combination of length and bend. And what is impressing me the most is he is starting to get off of blocks. At college, it was so much just, I'm just going to run around you. I'm going to run around you. I'm going to bend around you. I might spin around you. But if you get your hands on Brian Burns at Florida State, he's not doing a whole lot. Nowadays, he's got some rips. He's got some good spins to get off blocks. He is playing with some of that control in the run game that you like to see because he's got that length. So if he can have just enough strength to kind of, separate himself and rip off of stuff, he's not going to run through anyone. But if he can get off of blocks, that's a huge thing for Burns, and he's doing that. And then he's showing the tool belt. Some of the counter moves that he's showing this year, he's setting guys up, he's spinning inside. We know he can run around the edge and bend, but if that's all you're worried about, you're just Randy Gregory. You're just Vic Beasley. Those guys have the same get off and burst around the edge, but they didn't show the commitment to development that Brian Burns has shown. So that's really impressive from Brian Burns. Then we got linebackers. Linebackers is so tough. It's so hard to consistently impact the game from that linebacker position. And you so often get exposed. So all these guys have bad games just because of the nature of the position. But I do still have Bobby Wagner 1. Just the full package. He's still a freak athlete. I'm not ready to drop him off. I got Levante David 2. So steady. Possibly the best cover linebacker in the game. Such great route recognition. Flies to the ball. Secure tackler. Eric Kendricks 3. He's one of the most unique guys on this list because he is so good at getting his head around and just finding someone to cover. You very rarely see Eric Kendricks just stand there and kind of try to read the routes and let guys come to you. He is going to you as a linebacker in coverage, and that is very unique. He gets great depth in his drops. He's instinctive, good hands. He's a great tackler. So Kendricks to me, 3. Warner 4, very similar. He's got more of that length. To me, those top 4 are elite linebackers. They do everything you look for. Play the run, cover, take on blocks, can play sideline to sideline, create turnovers. And then it got a lot harder. Colts fans probably just turn this podcast off. Darius Leonard and Drew Lock. Those are the two most just like aggressively loved players in the NFL this year. That if you don't say they're great, they're coming at you. Darius Leonard is a box stuffing machine. He's not my number 5 linebacker. Miles Jack is my number 5 linebacker. Deion Jones, my number 6 linebacker. Roquan Smith, my number 7 linebacker. I think all these guys have flaws. Darius Leonard is so good around the line of scrimmage. Darius Leonard is 8. He's so good around the line of scrimmage. He's instinctive. He gets his hands on the football. Can get you in the backfield. Probably a better run defender than those 3 guys I just named. When you really dive into Darius Leonard's tape, he does not get depth in his drops. Does not get his hands in passing lanes. A lot of his interceptions are tip balls, stuff that kind of lands in his lap. I'm going to take Miles Jack, Deion Jones, Roquan Smith, who have genuine athleticism in space, understanding of coverage, good hands. They can play like defensive backs at times. To me, that's just more valuable than what Darius Leonard brings to the table. I really don't feel like getting too far into it. I prefer the coverage ability of those other 3 players. I value coverage over run defense at this position. So Darius Leonard 8, Devin White 9, and CJ Mosley 10. We just haven't seen CJ Mosley for 2 years, so it's hard to put him on this list. Missed last year with an injury, opts out this year. I have no reason to think he can't play like a top 10 linebacker when he comes back. And then Devin White, we're just still kind of learning. He's made his mistakes. Be a little stiff in coverage, but he's made some great plays in coverage as well. Unbelievable blitzer. Like if you put Devin White at edge outside linebacker, I think he might have a 10-sack season. Just straight up being a pass rusher. Like he is so powerful and explosive. But yeah, that's my top 10 list. Wagner 1, David 2, Kendricks 3, Warner 4, Miles Jack 5, Deion Jones 6, Roquan Smith 7, Darius Leonard 8, Devin White 9, and CJ Mosley 10. All right, cornerbacks. I have Jalen Ramsey 1. I'm not ready to take him off the crown. He's been a little more quiet. The turnovers haven't been there, but he has been a big factor for the Rams. I still believe in Jalen Ramsey as the number 1 corner. But I am going to have Jair Alexander number 2. I think what he's doing is incredibly impressive. You're seeing Gilmore slowing down a little bit too. That's why Jair is able to take the number 2 spot here. Because Jair is basically doing what Gilmore did last year. And there's reason to believe that Gilmore on the other side of 30 now isn't going to bounce back, whereas Jair is 23 years old and he is insanely athletic. Jair is the full package to me. So he's my number 2. Gilmore's still going to be number 3. I still think he's an incredible football player. He's had his ups and downs this year, but he's 5 months removed from one of the best corner seasons we've ever seen. More like 10 months. But I still trust Gilmore. Tre'Davious White, number 4. Outstanding zone ability. Not an elite athlete, but super smart corner. Reliable. Marlon Humphrey, 5. Lengthy, do-it-all corner. Just not doing things at the same level as these other guys. Xavier Howard, 6, making the top 10 list. His growth has really impressed me in this Flores defense. He's got that lengthy speed, ability to just stick on guys in man coverage. Really does a good job breaking up balls, sticking with guys. Richard Sherman, number 7. He's not going to be on a lot of people's lists, but he does what he does well at such a high level in that cover 3 defense. And it's easy to forget how good he was for the Niners last year because they have all these star players. But you could not get Richard Sherman last year. You just couldn't. And I know he's been injured. I know at some point he's not going to be the same guy, but I'm not ready to bet against him. Then I have Darius Slay, 8. He's been pretty good for the Eagles. I still like Darius Slay. Deserves to be on this list. He's been quiet, but he's been far from bad. J.C. Jackson, 9. Insane production, which I don't think is going to last. Like he feels like he gets a pick every other week right now. But he's so athletic. His technique's only going to continue to get better. And I think there's a reason that Bill Belichick was shopping Stephon Gilmore. I think he sees J.C. Jackson as a young superstar corner. He's all the traits you look for, especially in a man-heavy scheme like this. He is just so freaking athletic and good ball skills, good technique, only going to get better. And then Jamel Dean, 10. Underrated player. Coming into the year, I had him on my breakout list. 3rd-round pick, rookie last year. Super fast, tough dude, not going to back down at the press point, but athletic and quick enough to stick with anyone in man coverage, smart enough to play zone, rising star in this league. His sky is the limit for Jamel Dean. And then I did slot corners as well. I think this is a little less interesting, but I'm just going to run through this list. I'm not going to talk too much about it. Bryce Callahan, 1. I've talked about him in Studs and Duds a lot. I mainly made this list so I could talk about Bryce Callahan because if he was playing outside every snap, he's not a top 10 corner, but he's been one of the best coverage players in the league this year. It was an incredible signing to get Bryce Callahan. Missed his first year in Denver, but he's been every bit as good as Chris Harris was for them over the last couple of years, playing that same kind of role. And then you have Chris Harris, number 2, getting up there in age. Not what he used to be, but still a damn good slot corner. Desmond King, 3, got traded recently. More of a zone guy. I want him in that cover 3 slot corner role. I hope he can find that home. I don't think the Titans re-sign him. I think he'll be okay for Tennessee, but Tennessee runs a lot of man coverage. They run a lot of match. It is obviously incredible value. It doesn't matter what scheme you run. You can get Desmond King for a 6th-round pick. You do it. I don't think he's going to be great flipping his hips and sticking to a bunch of guys all year long. He can do it, just not at a very high level. But, yeah, if he can get back into a cover 3 scheme with a pass rush, I love Desmond King. Kenny Moore, 4. Mike Hilton, 5. Similar players, undersized, super quick. Brian Poole, 6. A little more different. He's a really stocky, almost built like a safety or like a linebacker sometimes, but really fast in a straight line. Unbelievable run defender out of the slot. LaMarcus Joyner, instinctive, risky slot corner. Logan Ryan, experienced, slower slot corner. Kwan Williams, one of these quicker guys that can just stick to you in the slot. And then Mackenzie Alexander, more of the run defending type of slot corner, but not a total liability in coverage. All right, and then we've got our safeties. So I ranked 10 of them, but I split it up by free safety, strong safety. So I did top 5 free safety, which is more of your center fielding, rangy type of safety, more of your cover first safety. And then I did strong safety, which is more around the box. Sure, they might step up and play the occasional free safety, but 60+% of their snaps are going to be around the line of scrimmage, playing that kind of slot nickel defender role. And then I ranked them all together at the very end. So let's start with free safety. Kevin Byard's still number one for me, but Jesse Bates closing fast. I think Kevin Byard, a little more do-it-all, but Jesse Bates, I love me some Jesse Bates. So that's 1 and 2 pretty easily for me. And then I have Minka 3. So Minka's showing that range, the ball hawk ability, tackling, run defense, not as big a strong suit, but that's fine. That's why we rank free safeties separately. So Minka continues to play really well, continues to add to that resume, give us more film at that free safety position. He's probably only now reaching the point where he's played 16 games there, because in Miami he played slot corner, was not a good fit. And then Pittsburgh traded for him, what was it, like week 6, week 7? Started him at free safety right away. Might have been a little earlier than that, but yeah, he's only played about 16 games at free safety, so he's climbing. He could get to the top. Justin Simmons 4 for Denver, underrated star. He's on the franchise tag this year, I believe. He's a hell of a player, and I struggled whether I want to put him at strong safety, free safety. He can do everything. He is an awesome player, underrated star in this league. So Justin Simmons 4, and then Eddie Jackson 5. Total ball hawk, been a little bit too aggressive the last couple of years, but you look back at that sophomore year, was incredible. The plays have been there. I think he'll stay around this point. He's really instinctive, great route recognition. He can jump balls. He's got great short area burst. But he's not a high-level run defender. He's not going to come down and make a bunch of good tackles. He's not really, by the definition of the name safety, he's not really a safety. He's more of an aggressive approach. He's going to go for those big plays. That's why I like pairing him with more of a conservative option next to him. I think it was why he had his best year with Adrian Amos there, because he was really able to thrive behind a great pass rush as well. But yeah, I'm not trying to diss on Eddie Jackson. I just kind of pointing out why he's not number one. But yeah, Jackson's great playmaker, great range at that free safety spot. Then strong safety. Harrison Smith, you got to give him the crown. He's been awesome. Best overall safety in the NFL. Kind of a master of all at the safety position. Although he doesn't have elite range at the free safety spot, but he's just so smart that he gets there a half step early. So Harrison Smith, number one for me right now, and that's primarily, I would say, because Jamal Adams has actually struggled in coverage, who's number 2 here for strong safety, and Derwin James just continues to show he can't stay healthy. So yeah, I go Harrison Smith 1, Jamal Adams 2, and Derwin James 3. And then Budda Baker is my number 4 strong safety. Now, you could put him as a free safety, you could put him as a strong safety. He plays everywhere. I loved him as a strong safety because he does play some of his best football in sort of that strong safety spot, but he plays tons of free safety, don't get me wrong. But I ranked him here with the strong safeties because he's not a true center fielding free safety. It's not like he exclusively plays free safety or he plays 75% of his snaps as a free safety. But yeah, Budda's been awesome. He gets the big contract this offseason that surprised a lot of people. Still growing in coverage. I don't have concerns about him in coverage. But yeah, he just pops on tape when you see him fly to the football and rally and be a secure tackler. So yeah, he's going to be 4, and then Tyrann Mathieu 5. He's actually having kind of a down year, but such a playmaker, brings so much life to that defense, and he's quick enough to stick with a lot of slot receivers. He's still kind of that slot corner, strong safety hybrid. So there's the strong safeties list. Just 1 through 10 for the safeties, because I know people want that. Harrison Smith, I do have 1. Jamal Adams 2. Derwin James 3. Kevin Byard 4. Jesse Bates 5. Budda Baker 6. Minkah Fitzpatrick 7. Justin Simmons 8. Eddie Jackson 9. And Tyrann Mathieu 10. And that's my positional rankings. So I'm going to take another quick break, and then we'll get into the mailbag, and then we have that big topic at the end of the show. So thank you for watching. We'll be right back. Alrighty then. Welcome back to the Patreon mailbag. Again, guys, sign up on patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. You can get access to the exclusive mailbag here for the show. So let's get into it. Connor Lee. Did you know 3 teams are currently on track to be the third worst third down defenses ever? Bills, Panthers, and Titans. Why do I think that's happening? I think it's COVID season. I said it coming into the year. It's going to be a hard year for defense. Home field advantage is a real thing. Not just the inspiration you get from crowd noise, but more importantly, what that crowd noise does for hard counts. Pass rush just is not as effective on third down as it is when you have a roaring crowd of 100,000 fans behind you. The quarterback has open communication. The offensive line has open communication. And the defense can't key off on the right guard tapping the center's leg, and then the ball gets snapped. So it's as simple as that for me. Offensive communication is at an all-time high because of a lack of crowd noise. It makes sense that you have to go back to like 95 for when a defense was this bad on third down. Because crowd noise just, for the Browns in 1995, they probably weren't selling a ton of tickets. All right, from Nathan Stevens. With the collapse of the 49ers, well, also quarterbacks are better than ever, too. That's adding on to that question there. But collapse of the 49ers without Nick Bosa, do you think it shows that Nick Bosa is the best defensive player or the most valuable? Well, the 49ers haven't been that bad on defense, honestly. Like I said, there's been a lot of bad defenses in the league. The Niners have been average on defense. So, no, I don't think he's the best defensive player or the most valuable. We ranked him, what do we just have him, 4th? He's incredible. He's absolutely incredible. They miss him. Their defense would be much better with him. But I would not say he's, especially in a league where Aaron Donald exists. All right, July Rivers. A couple weeks ago, you talked about I think you're talking about collegiate programs not preparing, developing some prospects, and spoon-feeding them. Which schools do you feel are most notorious for that? Which lesser-known ones are the best at developing talent? That's a tough question to answer on the fly. I was talking about Ole Miss. Really, some sketchy recruiting tactics, getting some questionable characters, guys that don't always show the most development. I think you look at the big programs that are not Alabama and LSU, programs that are trying to get into that conversation, that are really desperate to recruit these guys. They can use some shady tactics, and I don't have a ton of evidence for this. This is more gut feel. That said, Ole Miss did suffer some pretty serious recruiting violations several years ago, so I think that's most relevant with Ole Miss, Florida State. For a while, I think the University of Florida was there. I don't know if that is still going on. Those are some programs that come to mind of teams that I kind of hesitate when I see guys coming out of that school, which is not always fair. And it's probably just bad analysis on my end, because Brian Burns has proven that wrong. I'm trying to think of any Florida guys who proved that wrong yet. But obviously DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, Laramie Tunsil are proving that wrong. But, I don't know. I don't tie myself to that take too much. But I think there's definitely some teams that are a little more desperate from a recruiting aspect that can do some things that will appeal to some less high-end character guys. I think if you accept recruiting, illegal recruiting tactics to get you to go to a school, your priorities are a little bit off. As far as teams that are underrated at developing guys, I don't have a great answer for you on that one. There's a lot of schools that are really good at developing players. Like Iowa and Wisconsin maybe would be my first answer on that. Really get guys prepared for professional football. From Wyatt Sherwood, what do you feel is the best way defensively to slow down the Mahomes offense? I think you drop 7 into coverage, get a good pass rush with 4 guys, and you have to capitalize when Mahomes makes a mistake. It's going to happen. That's the one thing that Mahomes does pretty consistently is if you just make him take what's there and you can put pressure on him, he's not a perfect decision maker. He has 10 turnover-worthy plays this year. It hasn't resulted in the interceptions, but they're there. The problem is teams aren't capitalizing on those mistakes. The Raiders are the exact blueprint that you do. You drop back 7, you rush 4, and even the Raiders somehow did that. They have a terrible pass rush, but that game they did it. And you make Mahomes run around, you make him make the right decisions consistently, and when he gives you those opportunities for picks, you got to take them. And that's what the Raiders did. They got a big pick in that game, I believe. So yeah, that's my answer on that one. That was the same with Aaron Rodgers too in his prime. Very similar. You don't blitz these guys. You don't run these crazy coverages. They're going to beat you on that. Rodgers has historically struggled. Same with Mahomes, with 4-man rushes, drop into 7, make them play perfect. But I will say, Rodgers a little bit cleaner decision making than Mahomes. A little bit different there. All right, Loomer Cooper. Who are your top 5 MVP candidates? Who's the best non-QB in the league? I actually tweeted them out. So I still got Russ 1. Full body of work. Mahomes, I would go Rodgers 2 because, Rodgers is doing what he's doing without a number 2 caliber NFL receiver on the roster. Mahomes has everything. But Mahomes has been incredible. It's going to be one of those 3. Honestly, I don't see a world where it's not Russ, Rodgers, or Mahomes. And I don't really fault you for any of those guys being your pick. But Josh Allen and Kyler Murray are making things interesting. They're playing really well. In a different season, maybe those 2 would be candidates, but I don't know. And the best non-QB in the league is Aaron Donald. It's not trying to insult your question, but the fact that people don't, the fact he's not a unanimous defensive player of the year, and that's even something we need to ask, it just shows that Aaron Donald might be the most underrated player in the league because he is easily the best player in the NFL. He should be defensive player of the year. It's not even close. From Lions, rookie of the year picks halfway through the year. I'm going to give it to Joe Burrow, but it's close. It's close. Herbert's putting up the digits. Both Burrow and Herbert are putting up the digits. I think it's got to be one of those 2, but these receivers are just so good. Justin Jefferson is awesome. If Claypool has a few more games like he's had. But it's got to be one of the 2 quarterbacks, I think, for the offensive rookie of the year. Defensive rookie of the year, Antoine Winfield. Trying to run through in my head who else is kind of close there. I don't even know who's putting up good defensive numbers. That's a problem when you don't look at stats. I don't know if there's some random rookie that has 2 or 3 picks that I'm not thinking of, someone that's leading the league in tackles that I'm not thinking of. But Antoine Winfield's the first name that came to my mind. He's been all over the field. As the narrative about short quarterbacks changed, yeah. That answer was clear when Kyler Murray went number 1 overall. 100%. The idea that you have to be a certain height to play quarterback is dead. 100% dead. Brandon Cosby. I got your name right this time, Brandon. First for everything. With Burrow, Herbert, and Tua all looking good, do you think this QB class could stack up all time, especially when we haven't even seen guys like Love and Eason yet? All Also, what do I need to start saying to people who think Herbert is significantly better than Burrow because I've officially have a beef with Chargers Twitter? That just bugs me. What can you tell a Chargers fan? I would say because I'm assuming you can't just say, look at the film, because it's never that easy. I would just say that obviously Herbert, appeal to their emotions about the big things that Herbert's done. Say, obviously Herbert does things that Joe Burrow can't do. But if you watch play to play to play, Joe Burrow has been more reliable. He's making better decisions on third down. And that's really all you can say. It's not that Burrow's been bad, but Herbert's got a lot more to work with. The catches that the Chargers receivers are making are incredible. It is hard because Herbert's been so surprising. He's been awesome. Without truly diving into the play-to-play grading and realizing that Herbert might make 4 or 5 game-changing decisions, game-changing throws. But I think you want the play-to-play-to-play consistency. Herbert's been great, though, man. It's tough. It's tough. Just let it all play out. That's what I would say. Just ignore them. Let them have their fun. Let Chargers fans have their fun. Was there another question on there? No, could this be an all-time quarterback class? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if Burrow, right now, if Burrow becomes a top 3 quarterback, Herbert becomes a top 10 quarterback, and Tua is a top 12 to 14 quarterback, maybe he becomes better than that, I don't know. And then I still think Jordan Love's going to be a really high upside candidate. Yeah, it could absolutely be an all-time good one. Right there with that Luck Russell Wilson class, which was just insane. Kirk Cousins. All right. Should the Seahawks fire Ken Norton Jr. in the middle of the season? Right now, Seahawks fans are calling for his head. Seems our defense has actually regressed with better talent. No, because Ken Norton isn't the problem. Reality is, Pete Carroll is the overarching defensive guru in Seattle. Firing the defensive coordinator is not going to change anything. I think you stay the course. They'll get it in order. I think the Seahawks defense is obviously struggling, but they got the talent. They got the coaching. They'll stabilize a little bit. I feel pretty good about that. No, I would not fire Ken Norton Jr. Can you explain the benefits of both man and zone blocking? Well, man, it's not like coverage. Unless you're talking about coverage and not blocking. But yeah, run schemes are not man and zone. You've got gap offenses and then zone. You've got gap run games and you got zone run games. So your zone games up front are going to be more. You're going to see more double teams. You're going to see more guys kind of moving together, and everyone's responsible for. I guess you could technically call a gap scheme a man scheme because it is more assignment based, whereas zone zone's more like a moving wall. You're kind of taking out everything in your path. You're working together and climbing. Whereas man, it's not a bad term. It's just not the way it's referred to. So yeah, you've got like your power runs basically. It's mostly zone concepts with maybe one polar like a trap, or you do have your power runs where everyone's like, all right, I got this guy, you get this guy, this guy, this guy. As far as benefits of it, I would say zone. Teams run so much more zone than power these days. I would say it's just much more reliable. In a zone scheme, I think you can have one guy screw up their assignment and everything. Like, you can still have a great outcome on a zone call if someone slips on their block, because there's so many more double teams. You're kind of moving together. Someone else might pick that guy up. Whereas power is more like, if everyone does their job, it's beautiful because you've got a body on everybody, but you're relying on a pulling guard usually to get up into a lane. And I would say it's power runs are more high upside types of runs, whereas zone blocking is more stable. I guess would be my take on that. But I think there's a reason you're seeing teams shift towards the zone running. From Justin Oakes, whenever I see people debate about QBs, they always bring up INTs, and I think that's just bringing up the number of ITs is a dumb argument, because sometimes a QB can make a good throw and the defensive player just makes an incredibly smart athletic play, or it can also be the receiver's fault. How much weight do you put in the interception stat? Would it be fair to say turnover-worthy plays are better and more? Yeah, nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Over the course of like a 4-year stretch, you might say, all right, interception's more of a reliable stat. If you're looking at an 8-game stretch like people are doing with Patrick Mahomes right now, Patrick Mahomes has more turnover-worthy plays than Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, and maybe Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's been stacking them up lately, so I don't know about that, but he's only got the one interception. If you're looking at a small sample size, yeah, absolutely. You look at turnover-worthy plays. Interception's a very fluky stat. But yeah, over a long period of time, like if you want to look at career stats, I think it's a little more dependable to look at that stuff, because over the course of 8 years, you can assume that everyone's going to have some bad luck mixed in there. But yeah, the problem is, not everyone has access to the turnover-worthy plays or is willing to listen to it, because they don't realize that comes from watching the film. All right, from Vic. With Cam not exactly playing well this season, would any team let the Patriots trade up to the top 10 for Fields or Trey Lance? What kind of package would the team want to ruin the NFL for the next 10 to 20 years? I don't think teams really think like that, but I appreciate the sentiment, because I agree. If the Patriots could get their hands on a top quarterback prospect, it'd be Bill Belichick getting his hands on the NFL again. I appreciate the joke, but I don't think teams truly think like that, unless it's an interdivision team trading with them. But I don't think teams really think like that necessarily. From Matthew Bell, if Jimmy G is out in San Francisco, do you think the Patriots bring him back? And do you think he would have success? That's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that. I do think the Patriots would prefer to go the veteran route. Bill Belichick's 71. I don't think he has a ton of interest in developing a young kid. I think he would do it if that was his best option. I think that would make a lot of sense. Familiar with the scheme. They obviously like him. I actually think he fits better in a scheme like that, where it's kind of getting rid of the ball a little quicker. Because in the offense he runs right now, think about the guys that run that scheme. It's Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Aaron Rodgers. Guys that can move, get out of the pocket, and fire missiles off of play action. Jimmy G is more of a meticulous, traditional pocket passer, short to intermediate game, attack the middle of the field, which he does really well with Kyle Shanahan. I don't think he'd be an elite quarterback if he went back to New England, but I do think that could actually work out really well for New England, and is absolutely something to entertain. Like, could San Francisco get a high second-round pick back after renting Jimmy G? I like that narrative. I think that's a really fun thought. And then also, I know it's too early for draft evals, but what are your initial impressions of Zach Wilson? I was skeptical at first. The more I watch him, he seems like a clear first-round talent. I've seen about 3/4 of Zach Wilson in 3 different games. what pops most about him is he has that fluid pocket manipulation ability. Senses pressure, knows what to do, extends plays, all that good stuff, which is incredibly valuable. I'm still figuring out the accuracy, the arm talent, the decision making, the processing in rhythm, all that stuff. But yeah, clearly he has a very good pocket feel, which is a great starting point. I don't know. I don't know if he comes out of school. I know he's an underclassman. I don't know what his evaluation is going to be, but yeah, it's looking more like he's a first round prospect, maybe even a top 10 prospect. Yeah. Okay, we're going to take one more break here, and then we'll go to the racially weighted topic. But if you want to head out now, thank you for watching, man. We'll see you later. Again, I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with our last topic to wrap up the show. So this next topic is heavy. Yesterday, the NFL implemented a really polarizing rule. And that is now, if you have a minority employee, namely an assistant coach or a front office personnel, who then gets a job as a head coach elsewhere or a general manager elsewhere for another team, you are awarded 2 third-round picks for the head coach, and I believe it is 1 for the general manager. And I wanted to put this at the end of the show because I realize so many of you just don't want to talk or think about race or politics. You're here for sports, and I get that. I respect that. And if you want this to be at the end of the show, that's perfectly good. I appreciate you for watching, for listening. We'll see you for the next one. You can head out. I will not judge. Totally get it. But the reality is the NFL just passed a rule that is now going to blend real football analysis and team building analysis and race. And I think it's something that I personally want to discuss. I find it really fascinating, and I don't think it's something we should just avoid and sweep under the rug. Man, I feel as though we just got hit with some really big NFL news that most platforms are just going to be okay with and stay away from because it involves race. But I'm not afraid to discuss this. I think conversation is more important now than ever. I think too many people are afraid to even discuss this thing because it's so easy to quote-unquote slip up and say something that'll get you canceled these days. But I think this is an important topic to discuss, and I don't want to just sweep it under the rug because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm willing to risk that this could be a quote-unquote bad career decision or whatever. I just think too many people are afraid to say anything about race right now, and I'm just not afraid to share my opinion and my own perspective on this. So I think we're all adults. We should be able to listen to someone's perspective and opinions about this stuff without immediately insulting, blasting, or canceling them. I'm putting faith in you guys to discuss this thing. And frankly, this isn't so much a racial thing as it is a real new rule in the NFL that's big news that's going to change team building outcomes in this league. So I want to analyze this, talk about what changes we could see, and discuss my own perspective on this rule and if it's a good change. But anyway, I say this thing is polarizing because I think the intentions of this rule are very good. I think there's a strong argument to be made that certain owners in this league have certain preconceived ideas of what the face of their team should look like when we're talking about head coaches. I think a guy like Eric Bieniemy for the Chiefs should already be a head coach, no doubt. Another guy that comes to mind is Jim Caldwell, who received a significantly shorter leash as a head coach in Detroit than, say, Matt Patricia, despite having substantially more success for Jim Caldwell. So I do think that there may be certain issues with top-level hiring decisions that quite possibly stem from, frankly, old white owners who come from a different time and just have an outdated belief system. I do think the, biggest thing that comes from this new rule is we'll see more qualified minority assistants getting opportunities over all of these retread coordinators who have failed time and time again, who just keep getting jobs because of what you call nepotism. These head coaches have their coaching trees, their coaching families. They're going to hire who they know, who they're comfortable with. And I think a lot of great young coaching candidates, black or white, suffer from this at times. But in reality, a lot of these retread coaches happen to be white. So I do think that might be the one area that sees the most improvement from a football perspective. I do think this rule will lead to a different outcome in those decisions, or at least spice up the thought process on these coordinator hirings. And as a result of that, we just might get a larger, more diversified pool of more qualified head coaching candidates, whether they're white or black, because I think teams are going to now be incentivized to think more outside of the box and considering promoting and developing minority candidates as well, which may lead to just in general opening their minds about who gets hired. In turn, we could see an increase in the hiring of black coaches around the league, which would be awesome, and I hope this happens. And from a football perspective, we could simply see a more talented breadth of modern thinking coaches around the league. So I understand the argument for this. I think there are some great potential outcomes that could come from this rule change. I understand the argument for why people think this type of rule change is necessary, and I'm willing to give it a chance. But there's two things about this rule that I actually really disagree with. And you're free to disagree with my stance on this. I'm not some expert on race. Frankly, I don't know who is. But the reality is this rule, voted on by the owners, by the way, is a bottom-up approach to fixing the things in question here. Now, if you agree with me that the real problem here is that certain owners just won't hire black coaches, well, this rule doesn't incentivize any owners who may not be considering black coaches right now to then go and hire them. In fact, if anything, this rule actually gives those owners an excuse not to hire black coaching candidates because it gives two legitimate draft selections to a potential opponent or even a division rival. So, for example, if you're the Texans or the Jags and your ultimate goal here is to get past the Chiefs the next couple of years, well, if you now hire Eric Bieniemy, who, by the way, was very likely getting a job this spring regardless of this rule, I find it incredibly unlikely that he would not be hired. But you're giving the Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs, the 2019 Super Bowl champions and favorites in 2020, two third-round rookies on an extremely valuable rookie contract for a team projected no cap space next season. And that may sound insignificant, but Travis Kelce was a third-round pick. Tyreek Hill was a sixth-round pick. Kareem Hunt, when they had him, was a third-round pick. Tyrann Mathieu, a third-round pick. Those picks are a big deal, especially when used correctly by a great organization like the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, the Chiefs are popping champagne right now that they just picked up two top 100 picks in the 2020 NFL Draft for doing nothing. Now, I would hope that the right candidates for the job would get hired no matter their skin color, even if it meant the team he is coming from gets draft pick compensation. But I see absolutely no reason why this rule will help what I believe is the actual problem here, being that the owners, who again made this rule, just aren't all willing to hire black head coaches for whatever reason. So not only has the NFL now attached a superficial material quality to NFL staff members because of the color of their skin, which I hope this is the most controversial thing I say here, but that is literally a racist philosophy, even if the intentions are good. But I think they've not just done that, but they've misidentified the problem here by focusing bottom up, not pointing the problem at themselves for just not hiring the best candidates for the job. And in doing so, they've potentially even made things worse by giving owners a reason not to hire black coaches. If you were already discriminating against a black coach, the idea that the Kansas City Chiefs are now going to get 2 third-round picks if you hire Eric Bieniemy is certainly not going to help that decision-making. It might not hurt it necessarily, but it ain't going to help it. So on top of that, you're doing all this, and then you're adding this element of racial tension to an NFL community that I honestly, I feel like it's, racial tension in the NFL is actually in a pretty good place with race relations. Sports has always kind of been this place where competition shines through and the color of your skin just doesn't matter. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But the other big problem I have with this new rule is it's actually a personal interest and a connection to the industry, if you will. So if this rule is intended to be a sort of bottom-up approach to solving racism in the NFL, that would mean there has to be an actual discrimination occurring in the hiring process of coaching interns, low-level assistants, front office personnel. And if you're a minority who has experienced discrimination in the NFL, I'd love to hear your own experience and perspective on this. But here's the deal. This is a story that I've chosen not to share to this point for a variety of reasons, but I find it extremely relevant and fascinating to this discussion. Many of you know I've tried to get a job in the NFL. I'm very happy where I'm at right now. Maybe in the future I'd go work in the NFL, but 2 years ago, I was really pushing hard for a scouting internship, working my ass off, email blasting, trying to get coffee, drinks, anything I could to get my foot in the door. And I felt I'd done a pretty good job making connections. I had a good resume between working for PFF, an internship from an agency perspective, and even this very YouTube channel. But the closest bite I ever got to a scouting internship, I'm not going to say what team it was, and keep in mind, this was 2 years ago, before this new rule. I was told that this team was going to be hiring for 2 scouting internship positions, one former player and one minority. And that hurt. I get it. I'm white. I don't know the first thing about what it means to be black in America. That's simply put my own experience. And it may be shifting my view on this rule, but I see that. I look around the league. Well, America is 61% white, just under 14% black. If you look at a front office or coaching staff, you'd expect a decent blend of ethnicity, but certainly more white than black just off of the statistics. You could just statistically expect 4-1 white to black. And before I sat down for this, I went through team websites looking at coaching staffs. I see anywhere between 10 to 40% black staff members. And I don't want to get too far into it here, but I think you get my point. I really don't think there is this massive amount of barrier to entry into the industry for minorities here. Certainly not to the extent that warrants this specific rule change. I think the problem, if it does exist, lies at the very top with these head coaching decisions. Now, even that is difficult to prove. We currently have 5 minority head coaches, which is 16% of head coaches. Again, a little lower than you may expect based on the racial split in this country. And I think there's something to be said about that. I think there's something that we could do about that with a rule that could improve the way ownership, basically gives equal opportunity to everyone. We do currently have the Rooney Rule that requires every team at least interview one minority coaching candidate for head coach openings. I think that's a good rule. We could add to that. But is a lack of league-wide opportunity for minorities, is that a large enough problem to implement a rule that literally assigns material value to employees based on the color of their skin? Is it a large enough problem to implement structure that may actually cause an increase in racial tension and lead to the questioning of the reasonings behind why executives make the decisions they do instead of just simply hiring the right candidate for the job? Is it a large enough problem to potentially, maybe the worst thing here is actually decentivize owners to hire black coaches? Those owners that might just be the root of the problem to begin with? I don't know, man. Even if the answer to the question of if this systematic racism in the NFL being a huge problem is yes, I think there's some serious philosophical problems with the way the NFL owners just chose to improve upon it. This being an actual policy that systematically discriminates based on the color of a person's skin. A policy that shifts the competitive balance, not just in the NFL workplace, but on the actual field with draft choices. And above all, I actually believe that this rule passed by the owners themselves, all in all, is a way for them to assign blame to anyone other than themselves for not hiring black head coaches, which to me is the root of the problem here. Again, I'm not really buying that there is this huge barrier to entry for minorities. In my experience, it was actually the opposite for me as a white person. I look around the league and I see good diversity between staffs and front office personnel. To me, the problem lies with the ownership, and I could very well just be wrong about that. That's just my own opinion. But to me, man, this just honestly looks like a way for the owners to make themselves look good, potentially making things worse in an attempt to address the problem. I think their intentions may have been pure, but just to me, man, it just did not feel like the answer. So, like I said, man, it's a heavy topic. I don't have all the answers here. I hope that there are minorities in this league that feel this rule was necessary for them, and I'm just wrong about that. And it leads to the outcome we all want, which is equal opportunity for everyone. But I just read this news, and it just didn't sit right with me, man. I just had this sinking feeling as a human. I was like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like the answer to this. The idea of attaching actual material value that shifts the competitive nature of the sport to these employees based on the color of their skin, to me, it felt like a step in the wrong direction. even if the intentions were good. So I'm definitely interested in hearing what you guys think about this. I know that you don't come here to talk about race, but race has now just entered the sphere of football analysis and team building perspectives. So let me know what you think. I'd love to engage in conversations with you in the comments below. If you want to stay out of it, that's perfectly great. That's going to do it for the show today. I appreciate you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time, man. Peace.